Okay, Jesse, let's move on. We have some games to talk about. Round 14 is in the books. Let us know what your thoughts are, or were, or are, or is for the round that was.
Remember we talked about the importance
word.
of good transitions between the deep dives and the games for the cuts. So everyone on YouTube goes, wow, Liam's so good at editing.
Listen, look, if I can salvage this, I can salvage anything.
That is true.
No, it's fine, Jesse. It's fine. But let us know your thoughts on the games at cmperfect_AFL. You can watch this on YouTube, listen to it on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon. Get us on Instagram. You can get a few clips there if you'd like. Go on. I dare you. Shall we jump right into it, Jesse?
I think we should, because there's a bit to go through this round.
There is a bit to go through. We'll start with Thursday night footy at Marvel. St Kilda 8-12-60. Going down to the Dogs 20-12-132. Sam Darcy is back, Jesse. What do you think of Sam Darcy? Because I can tell you one thing. The commentary was frothing over one Sam Darcy.
I know it's easy to get agitated when commentators do that.
Sure.
But I'm happy to buy a ticket to the hype train. You know, yeah, if I had my smart rider on me, I'd do a little prop gambit and tap the screen. I don't have it. You pay with your phone in Sydney, can't you? Here you go. There we go. Ticket bought. That'll do. He's special. And
he is, eh?
I don't know if they can legitimately wrap him in bubble wrap every time he's not playing. I don't know if that's an option. Potentially lock him in a pressurized room that's perfect for muscle stimulation and no injuries for the rest of the time. I don't know if that's even legal under the Workplace Health and Safety Act, but they got to think of something, because this is a pretty good dog side.
Yeah.
Players like Sam Darcy, when you combine them with players like the Bont, like Liberatore, I think Ed Richards deserves a mention in that as well. Sam Darcy can tip this team over the edge. He can make a difference.
Well, there was an interesting piece at the start of the game, because oftentimes, you put the preamble on while you're doing other stuff, waiting for the game to begin. And who was on the field? It was Brad Johnson and Eddie Betts. Was that this game? Pretty sure that was
That's usually Thursday's team.
Yeah, it was, because I remember Brad Johnson going through all of Wangan and Miller's kick styles, the zinger, the winger, the bazinga, all that kind of stuff. It was very interesting. But he did.
Did they go through his contract extension? Oh, that hasn't happened yet.
No, not yet. But I'm talking about Sam Darcy and how when he's jumping at an extension, he's like 4.5 meters in the air. And that's probably the first time I've got a piece of information from the commentary and then seen it play out almost immediately in the game. That kid's got his hands in the air. You're not touching it. It's not happening. He's gonna grab it and most likely gonna kick a goal. He's pretty goddamn good. Worried about the Saints, Jesse? Are you? Or are they just where you think they're going to be?
Well, you raised a good point with me, Liam. Their list profile and this team is not really looking good. What did you pick up out of that?
Well, they're trying to rebuild, right?
They are.
The old Saints. Rebuilding a young side, but 10 out of the 23 players, Jesse, over the age of 29. That's an old-ass team. That is a very, very old team. And you look on the flip side of that, which is Freo, in this case, the youngest team, at average of 23, having 10 players over 29 doesn't seem like you're getting the run into some of the younger players. What are they doing?
Not at all. And
what's Rossi doing?
Well, it seems like, and this is a problem that the Saints have had, and I think they're not the only team in this boat this season, to be fair. But I think the stat you've just given does lay it out quite starkly. Looking at some of these names that you've mentioned there, Steele, McRae's in that bracket, Bright Hill would have to be the serial offender of this. They've extended him until 2027. Why?
On top of the massive contract he already had.
So he's 900k over 4 years. I wouldn't be on the same money, but he'd still be on coin. To the end of 2027. Can we look at Brad Hill in 2025? He's already 31. He's 32 next month in a few weeks actually. Can we look at a 32-year-old Brad Hill who will be 34 by the time that contract ends, and say, yeah, we're going to start pushing for finals with him in the team? That's just not good list management at the end of the day.
But what's he actually what's he contributing though? Like I kind of picture him in the same. Well, I kind of picture him in the same vein as like a Fife or a Sonny, like that kind of twilight end of the career. to offer him a couple of extra is, yeah. I mean, is Liam Henry injured again? Has he been playing?
He's not been playing in the firsts. He's not in the latest Saints injury report. It's actually funny you've mentioned that because I went looking at the Saints injury report yesterday for unrelated reasons. Henry's not on there. The reason I went looking was Max King because I kind of wanted to see where is Max King. You could say that for the last 3 years. A snarky person, you could say that for the last 7 years. But he's not had a mention in the injury report for the last 2 consecutive weeks. He's still there as TBC in the graph they do at the bottom, but not a word about Max King in the last 2 injury reports. I don't know. I haven't seen the one for this week because I did this yesterday. So if there's a new one, I haven't seen it yet. He may be mentioned in that. But
conspiracy hat, Jesse.
In early May, he was confidently asserting he'd be back after the bye. Yeah. Well, the Saints have had their bye. They had their bye last week. This was their first game off the bye. No Max King and no mention of Max King. If I'm a Saints supporter, and thank goodness I'm not, I'm starting to get really frustrated the way this club is handling just about everything. I mean, this management. You talk about your 10 out of 23 players that you mentioned, Lee. That's appalling. If you're actively trying to push this narrative of rebuilding, if I'm Wayne Miller, why am I re-signing? Like, apart from it, the obvious, which is an ungodly amount of money. And you know what? Fair enough. That absolutely is a valid reason for players in the market the way we have it. But I don't know if I could be sold on a narrative that, we're rebuilding this side. There is promise there. You got guys like Philippou, who I think could become a really handy player, but he's also been courted by South Australian teams apparently. I think he's out of contract next year as well. So the Saints need to get serious. And with guys like Steele, of course, former GWS Academy alumni, for those who watched that episode a couple of weeks ago. Guys like Steele, guys like Brad Hill. The only probably veteran I can say that's comfortably earning their spot, apart from McRae, who is, really putting in a good season, would be Mason Wood. And I think he does add a lot. But then you look at the way they forced out Tim Membry last year, who's now having a productive season at the Pies, and you just wonder what the actual plan is here for the Saints.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with the Saints. You spoke about it, how they've got a treasure chest, and if they're going to keep losing players and not being able to entice players in, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Jesse, we should move on to the next game though, lest we talk for hours about this one. Moving on, Friday night in Launceston, Hawks 6-11-47. And yes, 47 was a winning score. 5-14-44 to the Adelaide Crows in what was apparently, Jesse, a colder game than the famous snow game that was in Canberra. It was very chilly, and you could see it on the screen. Every breath they took, the vapor just flowing out of their mouth. It was a cold one, which I'm guessing probably contributed to the low score.
I will say something though. Good on the crowd for turning up. Yeah, they really turned up too.
15,000 at UTAS is amazing. That is
I know it's a Friday night, it's a market game. I get the element you got to show up and do it, but gee, that's cold. I don't know if it's just the West Australian in me. I don't know if I could do it.
Jesse, it gets to 7 degrees here. We're like, oh my god, it's so freezing.
It gets to 17. I'm like that. Too chilly for me. We should probably talk about the game though.
Sure.
I think this is one of those no-loss games for both sides. Obviously, one team gets the premiership points. But if I'm Adelaide looking at this, I'm shaking my head and cursing the sky saying it's the one that got away. But I think the Crows are learning a lot from these death game scenarios that they're in. They've had a few not go their way. They've also had ones go their way this season. Of course, the showdown being probably the most significant, just given how fiery that crowd is and how eager that crowd is to see a result. I think that's probably a really good example of where the Crows have shone in late game situations. Lonnie's one of the hardest trips. Freo won 2 of 13 games when they've gone to Launceston. It's not an easy place unless you know the ground quite well. I don't think Adelaide had any exposure to Launceston, or certainly limited down that way. So I think they can shake this off. Dan Curtin had an awesome game, I thought. For the Crows, I think that's a really good sign for their high draft pick that he can start to really cement himself in that best 23. For the Hawks,
hey, look, and they're just on that though. That's a really good sign of a good team that you can bring someone in, a draftee in, and they can contribute obviously with aplomb so quickly and fit into the team when you've still got an epic team around you.
Yes.
The Crows are doing something right.
They are. So are the Hawks, though. They ground this out. They absolutely ground this out. And it was a complete performance from everyone but the forwards. And sometimes that's just how it goes. I don't think Joe Newcombe had his best game, but apart from that, it was a really good, consistent effort across the board. And I've said it on record multiple times on this podcast. I think there's not many coaches who will have a better legacy by the time it's done than Sam Mitchell. He is just able to be everything. He could be the tough coach. He could be the fun coach. He's perfect for this Hawthorn side. Assuming they can make it to the finals, they can go a long way, irrespective of whether they're top four or not. They're just one of these teams.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you spoke about the accuracy of the forwards for both teams. Obviously, Adelaide, we pump them up every week with how good their forward line is, but around the ground as well. Some of the stats I found interesting were the mids and the ball movers, usually going at a good click. Dawson usually goes about 60% when 50. Rankin usually 61 when 52, I think it was. Rochelle normally goes 68 when 53. And in a game like this, where obviously in front of goals, it's quite inaccurate. It must have been infectious, just going around the entire ground. Everyone was just going, when is this game? Let's get this over with so I can have a hot shower.
Well, stats matter, Liam, and I think disposal efficiency is a bit misunderstood a lot of the time in terms of what it actually means. It's not always a case of higher equal better, but when you're seeing significant drops in production like that from guys who get volume of ball and are capable users 9 times out of 10, it's going to make things harder, and it's difficult to pinpoint whether that's exactly the reason they lost, but I think you have to acknowledge it makes a pretty significant difference. I think that's a good pickup.
Well, Rochelle at 68% is insane. That's really good. Like, you look at some of the best batters in baseball, if you're hitting at like 0.4, so hitting 40% of your hits, elite. Going at 68% when you're getting that much ball. Look, we'll give him a pass for this week, eh?
I think so.
We'll give him a pass for this week. Let's move on to the next game, which was a very interesting one at the Gabba. The Lions 13-18-96 going down to the unpredictable Giants 17-5, 107. There it is again, Jesse. It's the reverse. It's the antithesis of the previous game. Two teams that couldn't score goals, and you got the Giants who couldn't bloody miss. But a surprising victory, potentially.
I think we can say a surprising victory. If you look at the insipid performance they put in last week against Port Adelaide, looks like a different side.
Yeah, it's a different side, and it's the team this year where, especially when it comes to our tips, you don't know what you don't know.
Can we just sideline them from the competition? Make it a 16-team competition again.
Yeah. No, because then you want to get rid of Fremantle again. We don't want that.
No, I'll get rid of someone funny.
Like who?
I don't know. Imagine how annoyed Collingwood would be if I just chop them out of the competition.
Where are you going to go now, Collingwood? Where are you going to go, fans? But no, I mean, I think the biggest factor in this one was Cadman. Massive game from Cadman. Hogan as well, obviously keeping tabs on our old mate Jeremy Cameron for the Coleman. Oh, a little tie into our little deep dive there, Jesse. Very nice, very nice. But undefeated the Giants are when they're 3-0. Not undefeated. They're 3-0 when Hogan and Cadman both kicked 2 goals. Now, Hogan is a name that I know. I hear him all the time. Cadman, and this is coming from the lax, the chill footy fan that I am. Cadman's not a name that I know and I hear that often. But when those two are kicking goals, when those two are firing, you know they're going to get over 100 points pretty much every time. And when you get 100 points, Jesse, in this competition, you're putting yourself in a chance to win pretty much every single time. Every single time.
Yeah, that you are. So Cadman's come a long way. High draft pick key forward, a lot of pressure on that. It's probably one of the most unforgiving situations for a young footballer because your body's just not going to be probably at the level straight away. That's to be your big key defender opponent is going to be. Yet, you've got that high draft pick. You're expected to play by the fan base. You're expected to perform by the fan base. It's not always been smooth sailing, but it's clear that when he can get firing alongside Hogan, it works. I think 3-0, that's pretty clear indicator that when they get going as a combination, it's a complete overload for opposition teams.
And Cadman's goals weren't exactly like close either. He was bombing them from beyond the arc.
He's got a beautiful action on him in terms of actual kicking technique.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderful. Now, Jesse, just on the Brisbane real quick, because we haven't spoken about Brisbane just enough, apparently. I always had my reservations this year at Brisbane. You know what I've been saying.
I do.
I've been like, they're obviously what, third on the ladder now? I think they are third.
They are third.
But there's been something really unconvincing about them this year. And for unconvincing in the sense that they're the premiership, they're the reigning premiers, and you kind of expect them to play at a certain click. They just don't have that same effervescence this year. I don't know what it is.
Well, the hunger factor of having the premiership is fundamentally decreased. I'm not going to say it's gone, but it's decreased because you've got it. And that's the pinnacle of team sport, is it not? Winning the premiership or winning the top honour for a team. That's gone now. I'm not saying that Brisbane are taking the foot off the pedal. They may just not be functioning as well as they did last year. They've lost players. They've had changes to work with. But I think this is the first loss I've seen from them. I've started to think that's not great for the Lions. They've got the joint worst form of any side in the top 8 at the moment. 2 wins, 3 losses. Only Hawthorn have equal form, but you look at those two right now. If they were to play next week, I'd be tipping Hawthorn, which is weird because what happened when they played a handful of weeks ago? Brisbane were pretty dominant, I feel. Yeah. Watch and see with Brisbane. We get to the second trimester. I think next week is when we're due for our next trimester review. I think we're really going to learn a fair bit from their next fixture because it's a big one.
That's huge.
It's a huge one. I think
one.
that's the time I'm going to save for reserving judgment on where the Lions are at for now.
Fair shout.
But I am more concerned than I was last week.
Fair shout. It's not as egregious as a draw to North Melbourne, but that's okay. Let's move on to the next game. We had the Bombers 8-8-56. Geelong 23-13, 151. This is an absolute shellacking, Jesse. I've put my key takeaway. There's not really much to say about this game because Geelong are just powerhouses. And we say it every week with Essendon. It's like, where they at? And they had nothing. They had nothing to give against the Cats, did they?
This was pathetic. And there's no nice way of saying it. This is the team that at the time was 10th on the ladder. I've talked about the Grand Canyon between 9th and 10th this season. I'm starting to think the gap's actually smaller between Earth and Mars than 9th and 10th at the moment. Such is the distinct lack of quality. And Essendon have gone out to 12th now. That's probably reflective of where they're at, if not lower. This was hideous. And I understand they're undermanned defensively. I get that. But this was just... You can't expect to be a serious contender for finals and winning finals with this forward line. We came into the season saying their forward line was their biggest problem. They can't help the defensive issues. But then you need to see other players upping production. This forward line's gone backwards from where it was. And it was not a very strong forward line on paper after losing Jake Stringer. It's gone backwards. I'll go through some stats for this game purely from a forward perspective because I want to look at where the Bombers' goals came from in this game. And there's only 8 of them, so this one actually won't take that long. 2 for Peter Wright, that's fine. 2 for Guelphy, happy days. Archie Roberts, Isaac Kako, Gresham, and Dersma. That's not inspiring, is it?
No. I mean, it's good to see Kako get one.
It is good to see Kako get one. Bit of reward for effort there.
That's right. I mean, on the flip side of the coin, you got, how many did Jezza kick? 7? Was it 7?
He kicked 6.
How many did he kick? He kicked 6, which is not the first time he's kicked more than a bag this year. Outright leader for goals now, which is probably fair. Yeah. He's had a pretty good season as Jezza. And I mean, Geelong in general, their talent's elite across the ground, but Bailey Smith, he's been a bit of a revelation for them since coming over from the Dogs, hasn't he? 32.3 disposals a game.
That's huge.
That's a healthy average, that one is, Jesse. It's a healthy average. He's and the competition leader, I believe, for on a per game basis, because he missed a few, which is fair. You're allowed to if you're injured. Or just doing what Geelong do, conspiracy hat on, just pull him out last minute for a strategical little advantage. Oh,
yeah, because we're going to play the best player in the comp for strategic advantage. No worries.
And before we move on to the next game as well, obviously a big milestone for the Scott brothers as well. over 1,000 games, or 1,001 between them now, player coach for the brothers. That's pretty good. And they played it against each other. How wonderful.
Well, one team played.
Correct. Fair shout. Let's move on to the next game, Jesse. At Optus Stadium, Kangas 10-7-67 being defeated by the Dockers 10-13-73 in what was a very bizarre game of football.
Hey, Liam.
Hey, Jesse.
Do you wish you could go to work for 10 minutes a day, do nothing else, and still be given plaudits for doing your job? Because Fremantle did that. They turned up for 10 minutes in the second quarter, kicked about 4 goals, and then said, okay, see you on Thursday night. Can't wait to probably lose that.
I missed half of those goals as well.
You did.
I stepped away for 2 minutes, and then I came back. Everyone was like, go away. You're a bad luck charm.
I said a lot more than go away to you.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It's being nice for the podcast, Jesse. I'm being nice. But no, this was a very strange game. What were your takeaways, Jesse? Because one takeaway I got, we were sitting up the top. Obviously, it's a North away game. We weren't in our
it was a Freo away game. It was a North home game.
That's what I meant to say. Doesn't matter. But so we're up the top, and we could see like the whole ground.
Yeah.
And there was one thing about Freo's gameplay that was just reverted back to those early season games where we absolutely sucked, and that was that everyone was stationary. Nobody was moving. And so there was no leads. If there was a lead, it was ignored. And then it was bomb down the line. Very nearly got done in by the Kangas, to their credit, who kept coming. And if it wasn't for that Jackson goal late on, the Kangas probably could have got away with this one. Although, to be fair, it did give us a little bit of the heart tickers at the end, which is always fun, if you're on the winning side at least. But yeah, no, I'm not sure about that. Jesse, what do you...
I have a couple of things to run through.
Go.
Some key personnel points for Fremantle.
Okay.
I'm happy if it's just not going to work with Neil Erasmus at this point.
Yeah.
He's too slow at AFL level. He's Ethan Hughes higher up the ground. It's not to say he's a bad player, but he's not fast enough. And he was directly at fault for a couple of North's goals, specifically where I think it was Steven snapped it on his right foot. At the City end where he snapped it, and that was Raz's assignment, and it was his mistake in not clearing the ball fast enough that allowed the ball to spill out and get to Stevens for the snap. It's little things like that you see that just make you really question their game awareness and their game context. Darcy had his best game of the season. I still don't think it was a particularly good one.
No.
I still think,
but He definitely looked like a better fit for Cherry than what Jackson did.
Sure, but there's no point being in ruck contest and just standing there afterwards like your job's done. It's appalling. And the more I look for it, the more I see it and the more frustrated I get. He actually doesn't move after the ball is immediately vacant of the 1 square metre around him. It's extraordinary. And Cherry's not particularly mobile, but he was getting in there and getting after it compared to it wasn't as stark as it was against Wits a fortnight ago. But, coming into something like Essendon, Goldsay is probably another good matchup for him. But we're running out of your more traditional archetypal ruckman for him to play against. I think once that goes, Voss has to be second ruck. It's that simple.
Yes. They had a good game, Vossi, as well. 3 goals. Very exciting. I like to see that. But no goals for Tracy or Amiss, our 2 key forwards. Or 2 of them. We have several. But
the 2 main ones.
Two main ones. Amiss this year, you kind of expect a goalless game from Amiss this year, unfortunately. It seems to be more of the norm than kicking a goal. But Tracy, what's that? 3 out of his last 4 where he's gone goalless.
His last 3 in a row, in fact.
Last 3 in a row. Now, not to say that Tracy, because he obviously took the clutch mark in the final quarter, sprayed it out in the full afterwards, but that's okay. But he does a lot of work up the ground. He's a big presence up the field. So not kicking a goal, but he was firing on all cylinders earlier this year. Oh, there goes my voice. Yeah, he's kind of taking a bit of a back step, just a smidge, Jesse. But before we move on, anything to say about North?
Yes, but there's one more thing I need to talk about with Fremantle first.
Okay, all right.
Because I don't understand, and this is actually coming from a place of just pure exasperation. And I don't sit and watch all the other 17 clubs from a high up perspective. I can tell you at least one club doesn't do this. I'm so sick of Jocelyn Lemue's strategy of spare at the contest. It doesn't work. It is. You would think, in theory, that having a spare behind the ball is a more defensive game style. The contest one is more defensive than that because what it does is it collapses the contest and allows for repeat stoppages, which is fine if you have good ball users who can react quickly and generate space. But Logan McDonald had the best game of his career for North Melbourne because he was spare behind the ball for North. It doesn't work. I've never seen it actually work for us on a consistent basis throughout an entire game. Please get rid of the spare at the con. It doesn't work. For North, though, rousing success in the WA trip. I mean, they've acquitted themselves very well. I hope they continue, and not even just for the sake of Fremantle West Coast getting the extra game in WA. I think they play quite well here. They had good support. Their fans turned up in good numbers. You could really hear them throughout the game. So, and on paper, they've pushed the top 8 side to a goal and beaten a key rival in their ladder position. I think that's a couple of big ticks for them. They really should have won this game too.
Yeah, they probably should have. I mean, like with any time, Freya's a momentum team. That momentum was halted in the third, and I think we were all saying it. North are going to win this. So thankfully, Freo walk away with the 4 points because we need them. Let's move on to the next game. Move on to Sunday at Adelaide Oval. This is a bit of a surprise as well. I don't know why. Not a 14-9-93, 9-14-68. Hey, Port Adelaide getting over the D's here. Now we both tipped the D's because we figured the D's were in better form, and Port weren't looking that great. But they turned it around here, Jesse. They turned it around a little bit, didn't they? The old power.
They did.
Oh. Hesitant,
but I don't think either of their sides are any good.
No, isn't fair.
I mean, it's great. Port have actually been okay in the last fortnight. They beat the Giants. That form looks all right, and they've defended home ground well against the D's. But I'm not inspired by either of their sides, to be perfectly honest. I see it being very difficult for them to beat 2 of the Giants, Fremantle, and Dogs in ladder position. I mean, we'll come to Carlton in a second. I wouldn't worry too much about them. I don't see it for either of those sides. I would love to see them make the call on Ken Hinkley now, even with this win. I understand that he was actually sick throughout the week and Carr did a lot of the work. Is a rumour that's doing the rounds. How true that is or not, I'm not Ken Hinkley's doctor.
Conspiracy hat?
You can put the conspiracy hat on if you want.
Josh Carr's win. All right, cool.
So look, there may be some truth to that. Melbourne were disappointing. They'll be disappointed. It was some of their individual stars stood up, but across the whole, this is a poor performance by the Demons, I felt.
Who had a terrible game in this one, down back?
Oh, Stephen May. It was horrible, wasn't it?
So bad. And this is on the back of last week, where, and the commentators pointed this out as well, where he got in Maxi's face. He got in the captain's face after his unfortunate barrel attempt that cost them. Well, it didn't cost them the game. They're probably going to lose anyway. But
it definitely put the game beyond reach.
Beyond reach, exactly right. And then he's come out this week and absolutely shut the bed. He had a terrible game. Georgiades, 7 goals, which I believe was his direct opponent. Maybe I'm not too sure.
Was for a decent amount of it.
Yeah, 7 goals. Most for Port Adelaide since Jay Schultz back in 2014. So a good little bag for Georgiades. My brain was just like, try and say that, man. Go on.
Too many G's.
Georgiades, who we lamented a little bit at the start of this season as being a bit of a lame duck up forward. He's kind of turned it around a little bit.
He has.
Good on you, Georgiades. Mitch. All right. Anything else to add for this one, Jesse, before we move on?
Before you butcher any more Port Adelaide players names and make their fan base very cross.
The West Coast Blues. No, damn it. Optus Stadium. Game number 2, Optus Stadium.
Yes. For
this weekend. 7-10-52 to the Eagles, going down to the Blues 12-14-86 in front of 43,000. Now, before we get into the game proper, Jesse, Saturday night, Sunday, this Wednesday, you've got the State of Origin at Optus Stadium, and then we go again on Thursday night at Optus Stadium. That turf is going to be cut up.
I wouldn't want to be a team playing a very bad defensive side who have been beaten by 95 points the previous week and want to shut the game down on that poor surface. I would hate to be the home side in that scenario. Lucky them.
Oh dear. Anyway, back to this game. Obviously, again, disappointing for the Eagles, who, I think we both toyed with the idea of tipping the Eagles on this based on Their play the week before against North, they looked okay. That's a good toe, and we just don't know with Carlton. But a bit of a convincing win in the end for Carlton, whilst not being convincing themselves.
This is a game of two halves, but it's three very distinct stories within those two halves, because you've got West Coast, who were woeful. And I wish this was a different narrative for the Eagles, because it is getting quite tiring having to come on here every other week and say this. But they were woeful. The skills of some of their players. I mean, Harry Edwards' effort. I'm gonna call out individual players today. Harry Edwards' effort to tackle Lockie Fogarty for his goal in the first quarter was so far off AFL standard, it probably isn't even Bush standard. Just completely not at the standard of AFL level. Not even remotely close. Tim Kelly, 10 touches. Like, you are kidding me. Your best on ground is a first game mature age recruit, who was unbelievable, by the way.
It was the highest ever disposals for a debutant in Eagles history, I believe.
It was. Matt Flynn, terrible. I've tried to be a bit equivocal for Flynn, because he does have a tough job, but he was awful. Absolutely terrible. Played off the park pretty consistently. I don't see how this turns around, and we need a resolution on this. Ultimately, West Coast can't suck forever. Not only is that unsustainable, it's bad for the competition. But this could have been 150 points against a good side. And make no mistake, Carlton are not that. This could have been 150 points for them. So that's your first year three narratives here. Your second narrative is Carlton in the first half, where they were dominant, and they were absolutely in control. They could have easily, as I said, made this a 150-point game if they were a good fourth quarter side. Curnow, precautionary. I've got no issue with that, personally. Like, if you're in the slightest bit worried and you're playing a team that's already 9 goals down, I'm fine with that. The unfortunate hamstring injury later in the game to give them no key forwards probably wasn't ideal, but that's unforeseeable. You can't really factor that type of stuff in. They moved the ball well. They looked willing to attack. They're smalls, Fogarty specifically, but they looked like a really dangerous smalls unit with Motlop and Fogarty operating in that forward 50. But then it's like a different team comes out at halftime, which brings us to narrative number 3. Lim, you actually mentioned this to me as well, but what is going on with Carlton after halftime this year?
Well, I've noticed this a few times across the year, and obviously the 6th time they failed to score more than 3 goals in the second half, and
that's almost half the season.
Yeah, and it's just it's not a finishing team. Carlton do not finish; they're not finishers, and you should always be closing, and they just do not know how to close. And you're right. If they were playing on the reverse end of it, Eagles, if they're playing a better side, 150. If Carlton are playing a better side, despite getting 6 goals, 7 goals ahead, had every chance to lose if they were playing a better side, even with that start. And it's been a bit of an issue for Carlton this year. Their slow finishes and their inability to finish. I noticed it. I went back and I checked. I was like, how many times? This happened too often. Bloody Blues. If you're a Blues fan, you'd be very upset and very annoyed. But they still won by 5 goals. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, and I think Fremantle's probably in the same boat as well this week, where you get the win you're expected to get, but there is still asterisks around the performance, and I think neither club is out of the woods there in that regard. But you look at teams, and I do not want to include Carlton in the finals conversation. I don't think they're good enough based on what we've seen halfway through the season. They could prove me wrong, but right now I'm pretty comfortable saying they're not better than the Dogs, not better than Fremantle, not better than the Giants, and they're the teams they're pushing against.
But they have a very nice run.
Yes, but they've also dropped points against sides they shouldn't be dropping them to.
Very true. Very true. It'll be interesting to see how they fare, because that's something they definitely need to turn around with their game. Because their second halves are dire. Anything else to add to this one, Jesse, or should we bring everyone home?
Just that we do need to see some kind of resolution with the Eagles. McQualter is the right guy. There's pieces here, but we still talk about this now. Well, almost 2 years to the day, they were getting beaten by 170 odd points by Sydney.
Yeah. And
we're still here. Yeah, the margins haven't been as bad at times this year, but they are clearly the worst defensive team in the competition by 200 points. That's a significant difference. Offensively, they're not the worst. Richmond actually have them for the worst offensive team this year. But you look at their recent score: 62 against the Crows, 73 against the Cats. There was a bit of hope in that game. 52 against North, and then 52 here. That is dire.
I don't think they've got the same equity in their teams to do what Richmond did as well,
No.
like to kind of ship off people to other teams so they can then build a bit of a young dynasty.
I'd delist Kelly. I'll start with that. I don't know why they've extended him. I'd delist him. If you're seriously a leader of this football club who's been given significant position and acclaim, and you're getting 10 touches, I'd sit him. I know it's a tough call to make for McWalter, but he's already said he doesn't particularly like football anymore, or he's lost a bit of love for football. His performances certainly support that. Sit him. No one is too good or too important to eclipse the West Coast Football Club. That is not how this competition works. That's how the Eagles should work. I'd love for him to sit again as he did the start of the season, because he actually bounced back okay. He had a couple of okay games after he was dropped at the start of the season, but it gets just gone off a cliff again.
Yeah, it has. Well, they've got a couple of options, Eagles. They can either, use some money to go and drag some players across, some more experienced players that can clean house, start again, or they can just pay Harley Reid $2 million a year and he can stay around. Right? Who wouldn't want to pay $2 million for Harley? Anyway, we should wrap this one up, Jesse.
Thank you.
It's been a good show. Bring the lovely people home.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you everyone for tuning into the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, drop in your thoughts on the round that has been. If you are on YouTube and just watching this in the condensed round recap format, make sure you also check out both our deep dive where we talked about the exploits of Peter Hudson and also our Just the Tips preview of the upcoming round. Both of those can be seen here on this YouTube channel. Liking, sharing, subscribing, leaving a review over on your preferred podcasting platform. You can also comment on Spotify or send us a direct message on Instagram with your thoughts on the episode. But the best type of review, Liam, that you can give us is word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you can possibly speak to on Saturday in the winter solstice. Set yourself a challenge, because it's the shortest day of the year. So see how many people you can get that message out to. You got to condense it in, sunrise to sunset. Spread the Centimetre Perfect gospel. Until then, I'm Jesse. That's Liam. We'll see you next week on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.